Hey, what's poppin', everyone? So in this video, I'm going to be discussing pros and cons of going to a coding boot camp versus going to college. I am qualified to talk about both because I have went to college, though my degree was in physics, and I guess I've been to a coding boot camp, Revature. And you can tell I'm intellectual because my book's behind me, so obviously I've been to college, right? I'm definitely not lying. Anyway, so there's many ways to get a job as a software engineer. I'm a software engineer right now, and they include things like self-learning. You can go to a traditional path of college, you can go to a code boot camp, or you can even learn on the job. Like you could potentially start as a QA or like a tester, and then eventually move on up to like a software engineer. So I'm going to be discussing the code boot camp versus college in this video because it's the most straightforward. I thought I would still reference the other ideas because some people do like to learn on their own to get jobs, or maybe people like to learn from mentors as well. That's another way. You don't have to go through the boot camp. Or college technically, but you can do those things. All right, so let's start with the pros of going to a boot camp. So the most obvious pro is that it is generally cheaper to go to a boot camp versus going to a college, because college costs a lot of money. It's been going up like at an extremely high rate compared to the rate of inflation. And I've not seen a code boot camp be more than $20,000 like total for the whole thing. However, it is generally accepted that a 4-year university will be much more than, especially in the United States, and if it's like out of state or something like that. If it's maybe like from a different country, it could potentially be cheaper. So keep that in mind. Another idea to keep college cheaper potentially is if you go to a community college. There's this thought that if I don't go to a prestigious college or a prestigious university, then there's no point in going to college. And I kind of understand part of that, like because I went to like a top 10 public university. But I don't necessarily think that's like the best idea. Like you can go to a nice community college, you can learn everything you really need to, all the theory and stuff like that, and come out without $1 million in debt, which is honestly, that's what a job is. And at the end of the day, you just want to make money and not be in debt, which makes you lose money, right? So according to my source, the average cost of a code bootcamp is around $13,000. So we're going to look at some of them in a second. But this might seem like a lot of money, especially if you don't have a job right now, because honestly, that is a lot of money for the average American that makes like $45,000 to like $50,000 a year, like in a household. But it is better than the alternative of flipping burgers at McDonald's or Burger McDonald's for the rest of your life, the combination of Burger King and McDonald's. It also tends to pay itself off many times over if you get a decent job, which I would say more often than not, going to boot camp will potentially get you a job. I mean, there's a lot of cases where, they just go to boot camp and they don't learn anything. They don't like it, and they don't get a job. So that's another reason potentially why you wouldn't want to go to boot camp always, because you might just not like it. So, I mean, that's always an option. So it won't be that hard to find a 6-figure salary, even if you don't start with, you don't start out with one potentially, like right out of boot camp, you might not start out with one, but it also depends on the area on your salary starting out. All right, I wanted to take a look at this website because it gives potentially useful data and insightful data. I'm not affiliated with it. I think that's just like the first Google search or something like that. But anyways, the average full-time coding bootcamp in the United States costs $13,000, $13,584, which I think I mentioned before. But it can range from $7,800 to $21,000. I've heard of like online boot camps being like thousands. You can honestly just take a bunch of Udemy courses for like $500 or something like that, real cheap. But it's not really like a boot camp. It's more of like, oh, I self-learned, because I mean that's really what taking courses is. But anyways, so yeah, it can be really high. Like that could be the cost of college right there. But let's just look at some of these. So Coding Nomads, I'm not affiliated with any of these, by the way. $69,550. So some of these could be good, some of these could be bad. I honestly don't know. But anyway, I'm just looking at the cost here. There's like the cheapest is $7K from this list anyways. I'm sure you can find like much cheaper ones, but I would question the, I guess, integrity and value of a good cheap one, unless it's a nonprofit organization or something like that. Because then what are they getting from it? If they're because a lot of the times it's 12 weeks long, 27 weeks long. So they have to pay someone to train you, and the person who's training you has the choice. Do I get a job in the industry, or do I teach someone on how to get a job in the industry? And you'd think the person who's teaching you should get paid more, or like at least equal to the person that is um, has the job in industry. Otherwise, it would be hard to find the person that would train. Anyways, so you would think, I don't know what the class sizes would be, but you would think maybe like 10, 15, 20 people. So multiply that by that, and then that's how much they get paid in like the 9 weeks. And they have to pay like the trainer, and then it's like all business. So that's where you can kind of get where these numbers are coming from. And so yeah, that's why it seems expensive, and it's kind of why college is expensive too. You got to pay the professors, but with college, there's like a lot of other fees associated with it. Anyway, so a lot of these can be really expensive. Hack Reactor, like they have really cool names though. Galvanize. But anyways, I think this is I think Full Stack. So there's a bunch of different types of boot camps out there. So I want to make sure if you do decide to go to a boot camp, make sure to research and how you're going to budget for it. Like there's an article on this here. Calculate coding bootcamp ROI. Oh, they're really cool. This is really cool actually. I haven't actually taken a look at this, but ROI is simple calculation, gains minus cost. Okay, they teach you math too. So I guess you would find the income after taxes that you're kind of expecting. Oh, this is your current, and then your. So another pro of bootcamp, or code bootcamp, not military bootcamp, is that in general you learn more of what you're going to use on the job compared to college. So in general, the code bootcamps do a better job of teaching you like more modern technologies, algorithms, and data structures. For example, I learned like React, like one of the most modern front-end frameworks, or I guess not really framework, but you know what I mean. Modern technology, like I learned modern server technologies, kind of like Express, Spring for Java, and Node.js. So some boot camps also teach these rarely used data structures and algorithms that necessarily might not be used on the job, but I guess colleges also teach that because that's oftentimes what interviews are for, like large software engineering firms like FAANG companies like Google, Facebook, you know what I mean? So the intent of these kind of boot camps is to get you the job and not for you to do well on the job. So I guess there's two different kinds of boot camps: to get you into the job, or to get you into the job and for you to do well on the job. Because oftentimes those don't necessarily interact with each other. So these hiring managers that like ask these complex data structures problems are kind of just trying to quiz you, because they have so many applicants and they need to find a way to weed you out. So that's why they ask you to memorize these some data structures and algorithms for you to do well on jobs. Yeah, on the job, yeah. So the average time of a boot camp is around 12 weeks, as we saw on the website we were just looking at. So that can be, I mean, it's around 12 weeks, but it could be from like 6 weeks or something like that to like 27 or something like that. So that's many, many months. So that could be like 9 weeks or like 30 weeks. But anyways, that's still going to be shorter than college, pretty much no matter what. I can't think of a college that is only like six months or something, like 30 weeks. It's just, you question, is that even a college at that point? I know like Google has been like offering like their courses online, trying to sell it as a college, but I don't think it's a college at that point. It's kind of more like a modern college. I don't know what to call it though. So even though it's much shorter, you have to consider that you're probably spending like the whole day there every day. While in college, you probably do like a couple classes a day. You probably spend like 9 to 5 in the boot camp. So most people spend around 4 years in college. I probably shouldn't have to tell you that, but you probably might be able to spend less if you do it quick enough. Like you really focus up and take like 1,000,000 courses in one semester, in all the semesters, or you just have a lot of college credit, like AP classes and stuff like that. Because that's what I had. I think I maxed out on the amount of credits I can take into college, and I still took 4 years because I messed around and got a physics degree. You probably don't hear that much someone messing around and getting a physics degree. Well, I did. I messed around. I took like some coding classes, but yeah, you know. Another thing that college, or I guess some boot camps have, is they have a guarantee of getting a job at the end, which is really useful for those people that have difficulty like interviewing, or maybe difficulty like finding a job because they don't have any experience. So these kinds of boot camps are usually not worth the cost of training, because you have to pay somehow more than like a normal boot camp that doesn't have a guarantee because they have to make more money because they're guaranteeing you a job. They have to do all the networking for you, which you have to pay for somehow. All right, so now I want to talk about the pros of going to college itself because there are pros. It's not only boot camp. Obviously, an ideal scenario you would go to both college and a boot camp if everything was free and you had unlimited time, but there's always limited resources. So you get the experience of going to college, and that sounds like, oh, wishy-washy. Like, oh, I don't, like I'm so happy I'm in college. A lot of people think of college as their glory days, and when people peak in their lives because they're, I don't know, the youngest, they can do whatever they want basically. I guess now that they're away from their parents most of the time. So this is why many people go out and get graduate, advanced degrees, doctorates, masters. They don't want to enter the real world. I mean, not everyone, of course, but they're just real world terrifies some people, and I kind of understand it is terrifying. But I personally had a lot of fun in college, so I did some awesome things. Like I joined some clubs, robotics. I did like robotics. I did like I don't know. I met cool people. I know a lot of people that joined like many fraternities and sororities that they find that enjoyable for some time or for some amount of time. I feel like eventually they just grow old out of it. And you can't do that with a boot camp. Well, at least not yet. A fraternity for a boot camp. But anyways, my opinion, I think most of these people that join these organizations just join it so they can drink alcohol and meet the member of the opposite sex or the same sex that they want to have relations with. Which, I mean, that's up to them. But I feel like you're just paying for alcohol at that point. But that's just my opinion. Of course, there's the networking like aspect of going to the fraternities and sororities because oftentimes you meet like a bunch of people that have like a bunch of power, and I guess networking is really like probably the biggest pro of going to college because you meet a lot more people than you would going to a boot camp. Another pro of going to college is you're going to be more well-rounded. And even though my degree was in physics, like at UF, they made me take a bunch of courses like in a language, like, you know, French or Spanish. Like, even though I didn't want to take those courses, I had to take, at first I wanted to take French. I didn't do that so hot in that, so I had to take Spanish. And yeah, here I go. I'm more well-rounded. If I ever need a code in Spanish, I couldn't do it because I don't remember any of it. But I guess I remember some. But yeah, you learn more like math in college as well, which you might say, oh, you don't need to learn math to get a job, and it might be true in probably most cases. But I don't know. It teaches you some skills that might like complex math skills that might come in handy, and it helps you think more like analytically, which is also very useful. So another pro of college was the networking part, and I want to expand on that. So like for example, my school gave us the opportunity to talk to many like different businesses and interview at these places to get internships and co-ops. So like this, they had like pretty much so many different types of businesses there. They had Microsoft, Google, Amazon. They had a bunch of military companies like Northrop Grumman. I remember going to those because they said, "Oh, physics majors need to go to these." I'm like, "Okay, I'll go to them." And there's like millions of people in lines for all these companies. I'm like, "Why am I here?" Anyways, the lines are long, but people got a lot of internships. I personally didn't get an internship because I don't know what I was doing, but now I do. So getting an internship, pretty much guaranteed job outside of college. So you might say, oh yeah, college doesn't guarantee you a job. Well, yeah, internships pretty much guarantee you a job. Since it shows you have some worth, it shows you have some experience. Some businesses even like hire the interns right out of college. Like if they like them enough, like they'll hire the interns. Like then the person doesn't have to go to college anymore, which might be nice, but some people would say, might as well just finish your college. You know, you started it, might as well finish it, and hopefully they'll hire you after you get out. You can also make a lot of friends in your classes, team projects. Honestly, I made a bunch of friends. And then hopefully down the line, maybe those friends could, if ever I'm homeless and a hobo, maybe those friends could snag me a job at nearest McDonald's or something. That would be cool. Note that these friends probably won't be able to get you a job immediately because they're probably starting out in the same situation as you. And it'll probably be like many years until they're no longer a newcomer in their company and they have the experience enough to say, hey, this guy is good for a job, you should hire him. And then they'll hire you. Another pro of college is the more academic approach, more theory. So especially for software engineering, this is kind of subjective because theory doesn't always matter as much to some companies as to others. So some people don't think the theory helps that much on the job as or getting into it, but I definitely agree that the theory does help you understand the bigger picture, or like there's some problems on the job that potentially you could need the theory for. The learning is spread out over a much longer period of time, so ideas are more likely to stick, especially if you have to learn those data structures and algorithms. If you take it over like a semester, as opposed to like a couple weeks, then you're definitely going to remember it better. Yeah, so that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts of what you like, boot camp or college, or some other idea as well. Also, if you have any ideas for a new video, let me know in the comments below. Also, I'll talk to you later. Peace.